introduce myself as Kez because typically Keryn gets regarded as Karen, the manager Karen. So I just introduce myself as Kez. But welcome everyone. I will be presenting to you a brief overview about therapeutic play. If at any point you have any questions, please feel free to stop me and ask, to which I will try to answer to the best of my ability. Okay, so a little bit about me. I completed my BA general degree majoring in psychology and education. I then gained experience working with children. I pursued coaching 18 months to 8-year-olds with a soccer company called Little Kickers, and I am now the head coach of Pretoria. I then furthered my career by training with a robotics and teaching company called Liv Kaizen, for which I teach 4 to 12-year-olds. I am currently completing my postgraduate certificate in therapeutic play. I have done the training and am now a member of Play Therapy International, also known as PTI, as a trainee play practitioner. I am now doing my 100 hours to qualify and further the help that I can give. So, briefly looking at South Africa's stats, more specifically focusing on Gauteng, we see that there are over 350,000 children in need of therapy. Times that by 12 minimum number of sessions, it is close to roughly 6 million sessions needed. Currently, there are only 6,403 therapists in Gauteng, and this is not limited to just play therapists, but therapies as a whole. So speech therapy, speech and language, occupational, everything is falling into this bracket. So we can agree that there's a dire need, and my heart is to fill some of that need as best as I can. So Fred Rogers states that play is often talked about as if it were relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. So what is play therapy? Play therapy is a method of helping children with behavioral, emotional struggles and problems so that they in turn can help themselves. We see play as a child's natural medium of self-expression, and as previously mentioned, play is serious learning and essential for a child's development. Play therapy allows for the children to play out their feelings and struggles where words sometimes fail. To clarify, play therapy is play-centered, however, with the therapeutic objective. How will it help in a school? When children play in school, new neural pathways form based on each of their new experiences. By trying and discovering everything life has to offer through play, children increase their ability to learn. Therapeutic play helps with alleviating emotional, social, behavioral, and mental health problems. Teaching staff identified that children who have received play therapy participate well in group work, communicate with others, have developed the ability to listen, and also concentrate on work. They also noted a reduced amount of exclusions and an improved attendance rate. The benefits of play therapy. By expressing feelings through metaphors, children are given a space to make sense of their struggles, difficulties, and internal world. It aids in self-expression, self-direction, and self-control, helping to teach children how to feel seen, heard, and accepted. It aids in them making responsible decisions and choices for themselves. A study was done in Kent, known as the Kent study. 3 certified play therapists selected 126 pupils using strengths and difficulties questionnaires. They participated in 6 sessions planned with groups of 4 to 5 pupils and noted that the children demonstrated improvements in group work, listening, communication, and concentration. An approach we use is the holistic child approach, which takes into account the whole child and their environment. Factors such as communication, understanding, social relations, emotional, moral and spiritual, creativity, self-care, and physical skills. We then integrate the holistic model, the whole child and their environment, with the play therapy toolkit, including a wide range of creative art mediums. These elements are available to the child and are taken into consideration throughout the therapeutic process. They decide what medium they want to work with, and I, as the therapeutic play practitioner, follow. So art and play is for creativity. Therapeutic storytelling is for moral and spiritual development. Music is for communication. Puppets, masks, and drama for social responsibility and self-care. Sandtray is for emotional well-being. Creative visualization for understanding and thinking. And movement is for physical. Every child is different. Therefore, they each have different needs. When figuring out where they lie on the spectrum, we can see whether they fall under the category of slight, moderate, or severe psychological condition. The slight psychological condition involves temporary impairment of well-being and minor loss of functioning. The moderate psychological condition includes a child who feels emotionally unwell, there's considerable impairment of functioning, and these problems need to be dealt with so that they don't worsen. Severe psychological conditions, however, include mental illness or disordered child at risk and unable to function as a normal human. So, as a therapeutic play practitioner trainee, my work will fall under the moderate spectrum of needs. We understand what play is because we all hopefully played when we were children. But what is play work? Play work is where schools and extramurals would fall under. Then filial play is play therapy, but involving families. Therapeutic play is where I fall under, and it's with an objective, and the practitioner will be non-directive. Play therapy can be non-directive and or directive, with a wider range of children that can be worked with. The more complex cases and needs will be referred to child psychotherapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists. Now, the fascinating side of play therapy, neuroscience. So play helps calm the amygdala, the worrier part of the brain. This moves between the emotional feeling part of the brain and the cognitive thinking part of the brain. The Truan brain is an interesting way of looking into neuroscience. Let's watch children explain it. Hopefully it works.
We are going to tell you about our brains. Our brain has three parts. The front bit is called the prefrontal cortex. It helps us to think, analyse, be reasonable, rational, and reflect on stuff. Some people call this the upstairs brain. This middle bit is called the limbic brain. It looks after our emotions, memory, and relationships. This back bit is the most primitive brain. It makes sure we breathe, who and we, and helps our heartbeat, and has the threat response inside it. Some people call that the downstairs brain. When we get frightened, our brain stem acts and makes us flight, fight, or freeze. Hormones, which are cortisol and adrenaline, start pumping around our body. And that makes us full of energy and strength. So we wiggle, fiddle, giggle, and we can't sit still. We also either fight, run, or we fight, which makes us get older. Or we can freeze and look like we are not listening. But actually what is happening is that we are frightened and our body is trying to warn us and protect us. That's the bit that means we can think, reflect, and be reasonable. And the bit that helps us talk. So that's why when we feel frightened, sometimes grown-ups think we are being naughty. So if we saw a big bear, we won't be able to stop and wonder what kind of bear it is because then we'd be eaten. Our behaviour is actually communication because no child wants to be thought of as naughty. Often we just feel frightened and we can't use our words because our brains are preoccupied and trying to survive.
So we now know that there's an upstairs and a downstairs part to our brain. The upstairs is for empathy, morals, and logic. The downstairs is for emotions, sad, happy, joyful, angry, etc. When the two hemispheres work together, there is regulation, flexibility, and the ability to calm worries. But Daniel Siegel's hand model explains what happens when children and adults flip their lid. Let's watch.
One of the most rewarding experiences for me has been to study brain science and apply it to the experience of parenting. And the hand model of the brain that I use to teach parents is very useful to understand that. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your palm, put your fingers over the top, this is a very useful model of the brain. And when we can actually see in front of us what's going on in the brain, then we can change what the brain does. So let me walk you through very basically what happens in this brain and the structures in it. And it goes like this. The spinal cord comes up, representing the wrist, and then you have coming up into the skull, the brain stem and the limbic area, which work together to help regulate arousal and your emotions and the way you have a fight, flight, freeze response. These are below the cortex, the limbic and brainstem areas, and the cortex is this higher part of the brain that allows us to perceive the outside world, to think and reason. And this frontmost part of the brain, right behind your forehead, so the person's oriented like this, is actually the part that regulates the subcortical, limbic, and brainstem areas. This regulation is very important because sometimes we can have all sorts of things happen in our life. We're tired, we're exhausted, someone pushes a particular emotional button, and we can flip our lids. So rather than being tuned in and connected and balanced and flexible, we can lose all of that flexibility, even lose moral reasoning, and act in ways that are terrifying to others, including our children. Now, you can actually bring yourself back online and come back to the high road and make a repair with your child. And that's important to explain to them. And you can also use this hand model of the brain to explain to children, even as young as 5 and 6, how to understand when their emotions are rising up from the brainstem and limbic areas here, and how it's overriding the prefrontal area and making it so they may be about to flip their lids. So I've had kids come tell me that they're about to go flip their lids and they need a break. They need a timeout. And by even just naming that, they can tame it. And that's the power of using the hand model for ourselves and our children to help us all make sense of what goes on in the emotional communication that we have in the course of day-to-day life.
Okay, so Virginia Axline developed 8 principles, which we as therapeutic play practitioners are guided as set out by PTI. Developing a warm and friendly relationship builds trust. Accepting the child as is, we need to leave behind the diagnosis. A child who is shy will not be the same as the second child who is shy. They're going to be different, so leave behind the diagnosis. Establishing a feeling of permissiveness is feeling safe to express and feel free. Reflecting back so that the child gains insight is recognizing feelings that the child is expressing only when it adds to the child's process. Respect for the child's ability is respecting their ability to solve their problems. The child leads and the therapist will follow. Does not hurry the therapy. It is the child's process and it will be on their own timeline. There are a few limitations in our environment. Limitations are there for safety, making the children aware of time, that they are only there for 40 minutes, anchors them back to reality, and making them aware of their responsibility with the therapist for the duration of the 40-minute sessions, plus also coming to the sessions is their responsibility. However, everything else falls on me as the therapist. We apply Axeline's principles in a non-directive manner without judgment on diagnosis and without interpretation. The child will then feel free and accepted to be and solve in their own way, and they will express themselves physically and verbally through play. So let's see who therapeutic play is intended for and play therapy. It's not just limited to mental illness. It's abuse, ADHD, anger, attachment issues, autism, behavioral problems, bereavement and loss, bullied or the bully, communication problems, delayed development, nightmares, physical disabilities, poor school attendance, separated or divorced parents, social exclusion, trauma, unauthorized absences, underperforming academically, socially, or culturally, and withdrawn personality. For example, one of the play therapists that I am affiliated with, she had a client who came in because he had the fear of wind. And he came to play therapy and attended 12 minimum sessions. And afterwards, he had no fear of wind. All right, so who can I work with? I can only work with children that my supervisor signs off on. I will explain what an SDQ is in the next slide, but I can only work with the range of 11 to 21. I can only work with siblings one at a time, not at the same time, and there has to be a 6-month break in between. I'm not qualified to work with complex cases or those involving multi-agency collaboration, so cases requiring social services or other professional interventions. I can collaborate with occupational therapists and speech and language therapists when their input supports the child's development in a way that aligns with therapeutic play principles. If a case falls outside my scope of practice, I would refer to a more qualified professional who can provide the appropriate level of support. And I will not be able to work with any abuse. If abuse is disclosed after therapy has commenced, then my supervisor will help me through working with said client. Okay, so what is an SDQ? It's a little bit blurry on the screen, I see. But basically, strengths are your pro-social behavior and difficulties is the emotional symptoms, conduct problems, hyperactivity and inattention, and peer relationship problems. We look at the strengths, but we only add up the difficulties to score the SDQ. and that's how we get the range of 11 to 21. There will be one referral completed and a follow-up at a later stage by the referrer and the parents. Requirements. So I need a safe and consistent playroom to work in, and Sean and I have discussed this. I will need assurance that the sessions will not be interrupted, and we will have a sign on the door also reinforcing this. Assessment, screening, and post-therapy evaluations will be done through using SDQs. The time for sessions and clinical supervision, agreed timetabling and scheduling and communication protocols, especially with the school and with the parents, a criminal records check, indemnity insurance, and most importantly, I need parental consent before working with any child. What is desirable is parental involvement. We have a whole drive full of resources and things available to help parents with whatever they are needing support in. So we love when parents are involved and when parents ask for help and ask what resources they can look into. We also, a desirable factor is lots of materials and equipment, which I'm very grateful. My mom has been very supportive in my life, and she has found the most exciting toys and the most exciting symbols that you can ever possibly find. So my room currently is toys just hidden all around. So lots of materials and equipment is desirable, but it's what we have. All right, on to safeguarding. So we are registered with PSA and PTI. PSA is Public Servants Association, which is a trade union for public sector workers. And PTI is Play Therapy International. PTI is also affiliated with Play Therapy UK, and that is where it started. As you can see in the bottom left, you can see the APAC, PTUK, and PTI. So I'm affiliated with APAC, which means Academy of Play and Child Psychotherapy. I need to always do check-ins with my supervisor every second week or every 6 hours, whichever comes first. So if I am seeing 3 clients, then 6 hours will come before every 2 weeks, if that makes any sense. We have to do SDQs to work with the child, and my supervisor will need to approve once looking at the SDQs. Contracts will need to be signed between me and the school, me and you as the parent, me and my supervisor, and me and Play Therapy International as a member. Our police check needs to be up to date, and mine currently is. As a therapeutic play practitioner, I will also need to be insured, which I currently am. If there is a disclosure of abuse, the process is as follows. I will stop session, explain the process to the child, fill in Form 22, email social services, and if sexual abuse, report to SAPS, and then follow up with social services. My supervisor will then guide me through the process of therapy with said client. Now, before we do a little activity, let's look at some myths about play therapy. So myth 1, play therapy is just playing with toys. Incorrect. Play therapy uses play as a structured and therapeutic tool to help children express feelings, process experiences, and develop coping skills in a safe space. Myth 2. Play therapy is only for children with serious issues. Play therapy actually can benefit any child experiencing emotional, social, or behavioral difficulties, whether due to everyday stress, family challenges, family changes, or bigger challenges later on in life, you know? Myth 3, children will outgrow their problems. They don't need therapy. Truth. Early support through play therapy can help children manage emotions, reduces anxiety, and build healthy behaviors before the problems become bigger later on in life. All right, now we're getting onto the activity side, and this is when I am going to need your involvement. So you might need to unmute every now and then if you have an answer. All right, so for a kid, what could this be? I know, Sean, you've already done this, so maybe you could suggest the first one. Or anyone. What is this?
Umbrella.
An umbrella. Yeah.
Caitlin also agrees could be an umbrella or a mushroom, she says.
A mushroom. Good, good. It is actually a spinning top. So that's an alternative. It could be something to dig into the sand. So we can't interpret in play therapy because you never know what this could be in someone's imagination. Just for another example, this is a barrel. I'm try to show it close. But this could also be a drum. It could be a roller. It could be anything, you know. This is a random wooden piece. If you block the top, it could be a human. It could also be a roller. It could be a stamp. It literally could be anything. So we are open to interpretation. However, interpretation is not the be all and end all in therapy, because for me, one symbol can mean something, but for a child, it could mean completely the different thing compared to what it means to me. So we also try limit our interpretation. Awesome. Now that you've had information overload, I would like to open the floor and see if there are any questions.
You can either put them in the chat or you can unmute and ask Keryn directly.
I must just see how to look at the chat. If there's a chat.
I'll read them out for you if anything comes up there.
Perfect.
Okay, Shannon asks, what does a typical session look like?
So I can't describe a typical session because can you tell me exactly a typical day of your child specifically? They will go and do anything and everything. So because it's non-directive, they can choose whether they want to do art or whether they want to do music. And we follow along, and while they are playing, they work through. I know it sounds weird, but because they are feeling seen and heard and accepted, and someone is with them doing what they are doing and helping them feel seen, heard, and accepted, they often then open up to whatever they need to work through. Because children they have that ability. They have the ability to work through their own things. They just sometimes need the assistance. Does that answer?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to ask, in addition to that, do you then have everything out like we do in a Montessori school?
Yes, yes.
They can then come and choose what they want to do.
Yes, yes, exactly like that. It will all be laid out in the playroom Upon the first session, we will introduce them to all the symbols, and if they need explaining about any toy, we'll walk them through it. We'll introduce them to each symbol and say, you can play with this. You can do whatever you want in this room, as long as it's not hurting me, you, or the symbols.
The next question from Tamanique is, does a child that often bites his friends need play therapy, or just fighting in general and spitting at everyone?
It can definitely help. It can definitely help. The amount of cases I see, we are all actually on a group in South Africa as play therapists, and we all ask each other if we need any help with specific cases. And the amount of cases of biting specifically, there are a lot.
And then the next question, what would you do if a child doesn't want to engage in a therapy session?
We would literally sit in that uncomfortable feeling, because maybe that's what they need, is just to feel seen, sitting in that uncomfortable feeling.
I go along with that. It's very much the same as in a Montessori classroom.
Yes, yes.
And just from my part, would you engage with any of the materials if the child didn't want to engage with them? Would you engage with the materials and let the child just observe you?
Sometimes if it adds to their process.
And I see Shannon and Tamanique both say thank you, so they seem to have got their answers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also, if anyone has any further questions, I don't mind if you send my contacts to them.
Right. And then Caitlin saying, second question, what is the youngest age child a play therapist will generally see?
The youngest we generally work with is 4.
Thank you from Caitlin. Any other questions?
I see Alice has a high five or wave.
Keryn, I just want to find out,
Yes.
when you say the different interpretation of, like you said, the top, whether they see it as a mushroom or whatever,
Yes.
you know, like when they, you know, sometimes when you do that splattering, and then if a person sees a butterfly or what, then psychologists, I know you on just on the play therapy side of it, but the
Yes.
psychologists interpret it so. So if a child sees an object as such, do you guys use that to read into something, or do you use it to analyze things, or yeah?
We do discuss it a little bit, but it isn't the basis of our interpretation. Because as we develop, so at therapeutic play level, we don't, but as we develop into play therapists, then we can work with more specific case and be more directive. So then we can interpret a lot more because we are being directive. In the non-directive manner, you are doing their play. So therefore, you can look if they are doing a lot of circles every session, if they're always going in circles, in circles, in circles, you can see what the significance of circles are. And then you can add that into their sessions. However, it's not the basis of everything. I hope that answers.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. It does.
Sure.
And then the next question from Pragasi is, will the teachers at school suggest children for play therapy, or is the referral expected from parents?
Either or. Either or. So sometimes the referrer is a parent who wants their child for a specific reason to go to play therapy, or a teacher has seen something in the classroom that, because mom and dad are working all day and stuff, teachers sometimes see more of what is happening. So then sometimes they also refer. So it can come from both.
So I want to say to our parents who are here, I think we've been very lucky that Kez has come back to us and offered us this possibility of some of the children having sessions with her. I'm not quite sure about the people who are here who are not part of our school, how they would be able to access the same type of sessions. Kez, is
They
there
can
some?
also pop me a message and I can keep it on our records so that we have a lot of new play therapists coming in who are also trying to get their hours. So they can always approach that school as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
And then Shannon just has a comment there. She says,
Yeah.
have a lovely evening. Thank you for this. Definitely have a better understanding of play therapy, but need to rush off. Bye,
Thank you so
Shannon.
much. Thank you. Also, one last point that I forgot to mention is I obviously have to get my 100 hours. So this is completely free. It wouldn't be charged or anything like that. It is free therapy.
And how much is the therapy once you have your hours? How much are sessions then?
Usually once we are qualified, we will start charging about 1,000 Rand a session.
Thanks.
Sure.
And Kotatso says, insightful. We really appreciate your time. And Tamanique says, thank you so much. So
It's an absolute pleasure, everybody. Thank you so much for your time as well and for
we've
just coming.
finished with all the questions, and Caitlin says, thank you, appreciate the session. So I think we must all say, if anybody needs Kez's details, please just contact me either by email or by the WhatsApp number that you used for getting the link, and then I'll share Kez's details with you. So thank you all,
Awesome.
and good night. And thanks, Kez. Thank you. It was
No, thank you so
good
much
to
for
hear
having
it
me.
all. And I want to say we actually last year had a course with Hayley Walker. She
Yes.
was talking about protective behaviors, and she taught the children about flipping the lid.
Yes.
Really had them all commenting about it. And when they were getting angry, they'd say, I feel like I'm going to flip my lid.
Oh, it's so clever. Hey, it's so clever.
They really got the idea of it and really used it. And I think it helped them a lot to understand. Now they were out of control. So yeah.
Exactly. And we all go through it.
Mm,
We all have our flip the lid days.
yes.
Trust
So
me.
I think it's a lovely way of explaining it to children.
Exactly.
Anyway, thank you. And I wish
Awesome.
everybody a good night further. And I'm going to close the session if there's no more questions. There's Pagasi
Perfect.
saying good night. Nawal
Good night,
saying thank you.
everybody.
And
Thank you so
Isa's
much.
session. So bye to everybody. And
Goodbye.
if we see you at the next Thursday talk. Taryn
Yeah.
says good night and thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.